excellent qualifying session for the Grand Prix di Toscana. Lovely to be able to say that. Let's keep Mugello on the calendar forevermore. Brilliant circuit in so many ways. A 1-2 for Mercedes again. Lewis Hamilton just ahead again. To me, today, when things are a little bit clearer in terms of where cars were on the circuit, comparisons that can be made, for Lewis, the difference between Lewis and Valtteri, and Lewis and just about everybody else, except maybe Max and Charles, was in the difference in the way he was loading up the car. And everything was seamless with Lewis. There were no jolts at all. If you watch Sergio Perez, who in my view was kind of having an off day today, I don't know whether it's all a result of the news that he's no longer driving for Racing Point at the end of this year, but everything very uncharacteristically for Sergio, actually. You could really see lots of aggressive changes of direction and massive amount of what he's asking from the car, whereas Lewis is just completely seamless in everything he's doing. Alexander Albon, for example, is very, very good in terms of his initial transition, how he loads up the car, but Lewis was just so fluid, even compared with, and Alexander definitely compared with Valtteri as well. And for me, that's where the pole came from. Lewis, I think what he had to do to get that pole was work out where he could get away with using the tires to their maximum, providing he still had enough left in the car for sector 3, which is more technical, as they like to say. Lots of slow corners, not slow corners, but acceleration runs. Got to get the car right under braking for the last corner. Long drag, of course, down to the timing line. Long drag, actually. It's quite interesting to see the cars in a straight line for a long time before they actually take the timing beam. But anyway, from Lewis's point of view, he could be incredibly quick through sector 1 and then into sector 2, where to me 6, 7, they talk about 8, 9, the spicy corners in English, but for me it's 6, 7, that right and then that left down the hill. Very, very impressive to watch. There was a moment in free practice this morning when Max was, I don't know how much fuel he was running, but sparks pouring out of the Red Bull. And Max through there was just unbelievable to watch. I mean, it was just like, wow. And I think what we're seeing there is a massive amount of downforce matched to a massive amount of grip overall. And even if the cars aren't moving that much, the amount of energy and the amount of load going through the tires has its impact. So if you're really, really good through there, the chances are that by the time you get to sector 3, the edge will have come slightly out of the tires. And I think this was the problem Lewis was facing. He was naturally incredibly good through there, flat through 6, 7, 8, 9, but massive energy going through the car. By the time he got to sector 3, the edge had gone, and it was quite difficult for him always to match Valtteri in sector 3. So let's just have a look and see what happened at the end. To do his pole lap, he was on sector 3, 27.6 compared with Valtteri's 27.5. So he narrowed that gap a lot. Sector 2, the bit we were just talking about, 20.6 compared with Valtteri's 20.7. At sector 1 probably is where the pole came from in many ways, because he matched Valtteri there, even though he was going to be really quick in sector 2. So 26.8 through sector 1. Valtteri did get yellow. He got Esteban Ocon on his last run in Q3, so he will say, well, this pole position really was mine for the taking. I've been quick for most of the weekend so far, and then I got the yellow going into sector 2. So that was Valtteri's story. In my view, Lewis still got in almost the perfect lap. So how it would have worked out, we don't know. Also, right at the end, the track was a little bit slower. The wind got up. And in that context, and bear in mind, Lewis didn't go any quicker on the second run. He did 15.1, and that was the pole time from the first run. Look at Charles Leclerc. At the end of the first run in Q3, he's done a 17.7. And he's thinking, maybe I can do a 17.3, something like that. Maybe I can get to P5, P6. In the second run, Charles Leclerc does a 16.2 when the track is slower to get ahead of both Racing Points. That was an absolutely superb performance, I think. And at the end of it, Charles came on the radio. He sounded absolutely breathless. And a lot of the drivers are saying how high the G loading is. And Lewis was saying, you really feel it through 6, 7, 8, 9. He was saying, the amount of G you're pulling through 8 and 9. Actually, the G meter on Lewis's car this morning in FP3 showed that going into 6, as I was saying, downhill, the right-hander and then the left, it's over 5G as well. Really, really quick there. So the amount of lateral G as they plunge down the hill is about the same as when they're coming out through the double loop. So a very dramatic piece of road, and just the sort of section of racetrack that we want on the Formula One calendar. Absolutely brilliant. Esteban Ocon, as I say, had this spin at the end of Q3, and he lost it coming out of 5 by all appearances. He comes out of 5, gives it too much throttle, and the car goes round, a bit like Lando Norris yesterday, except that there wasn't quite as much correction. It was a different sort of spin. It didn't hit anything at the end of the day. But for me, that began in the change of direction mid-corner. He comes into the left, and he's got a bit of oversteer, and he has to do this. And then there's quite a dramatic movement on the steering wheel. So by the time he's lining the car up for the exit, which is turn 5, he's already got a lot of load on the car, more load than the car can take, obviously, when he gets the throttle on. So he needed to be more circumspect with the initial throttle application, and that was why he spun. So it came from the change of direction, not just from putting on too much power too soon, which is what the visual evidence, television, foreshortening, etc., probably indicates. And it comes back to my point that where Lewis is scoring over virtually everybody at Mugello, and we didn't see Charles' lap, but I'm imagining how good it was, and we didn't see Max's lap, and I'm imagining how good that was as well. But in that little bit there, that change of direction, that is where you see Lewis not asking so much from the car. He's not doing one of these. Everything is just finding a little flat spot of the car where he can just get it pointed straight for a millisecond and then do the change of direction. So he's not loading up the car with more than it can take in any given millisecond. Quite difficult to explain and to describe, but to me, that's what that lap, and that's what this circuit is engendering, and that's why you're seeing drivers like Charles Leclerc going so well. It is a really, really demanding circuit. Let's just look at where we've got to go right down to the end of Q2 to see where Sebastian Vettel was 16.8 compared with Charles Leclerc 16.3. So yeah, half a second, that's quite a lot in the same car for a Ferrari driver at Ferrari's home track. And as a result of that, of course, Sebastian didn't get through to the top 10 into Q3. His engineer was saying, oh, how close it was, just a couple more tenths and he would have been there. But yeah, absolutely. What does that mean? So yeah, good lap from Daniel Ricciardo too in Q2. He said, wow, that took the breath away. And that was a 16.2. So that was the lap that Leclerc did, arguably in a worse car than the Renault. So that gives you some idea of how good that Ferrari lap was for Charles. A lot of talk about poor old Pierre Gasly only qualifying 16th in Q2, and that's not making it through, obviously, to Q3. But we should remember he only qualified 10th at the Italian Grand Prix. It's one thing to say the winner of the Italian Grand Prix doesn't actually get through to Q3. It's another to remember that he is driving an AlphaTauri and that it isn't going to be the most competitive car race in, race out. So I don't think we should get too excited about that. On this occasion, Daniel Kvyat actually did a better job and looked pretty good in the car, didn't he? As I say, it's a little bit of, well, I can do that too sort of thing coming out from Daniel. It's the first time we've seen him driving this way, I think, for a long time. We know he drives quite well. It's just I don't know where he's been all year, but he's starting to look pretty good again. I think a great time by Max Verstappen. Pretty good job now by Alex Albon to qualify 4th in terms of position. That's very good for him. Still half a second away, or just under half a second from Max, but around Mugello, that's not bad. He'll be pretty comfortable with that, and he was quicker than Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez has got his one-place grid penalty for colliding with Kimi yesterday, coming out of the pit lane. Quite a difficult pit lane exit there. I sympathise a little bit with Sergio there because it's quite difficult to see. Obviously, it's difficult to see, and we hear so often drivers on track saying, "Oh, I didn't see him." Something must be done about that. We have that lovely camera looking backwards on the virtual dash of the cars. I don't know why they can't have a rearward-facing camera and that picture for all the drivers. I suppose there has to be a good reason why not, but I can't think of one. I think that would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? Anyway, they can't really see very much. Sergio obviously couldn't see. He was blind there. Perhaps they need that sort of thing we have on road cars today for the blind spot, and hit Kimi. He's got his one-place grid penalty. Anyway, racing points 6th and 7th, 16.3 for both drivers. You got to say that and I've said this before, but if Max and Lewis were driving those two cars, I think they would have been probably ahead of the Red Bulls. I think it's a pretty good car around here. And what you're seeing there is Stroll doing pretty well, about where you'd expect him to be. But, they really should have got more out of the Sergio Perez car than they did. Well, sorry, Sergio should have got more out of himself than he did. I think the engineers did a very good job. So, yeah, I mean, that team, whether or not Sebastian Vettel, who, let's face it, if you look at Lance Stroll doing a Charles Leclerc lap time, then you think, well, maybe the cars aren't that far apart. And then you look at where Sebastian Vettel was, half a second away. half a second away from actually Lance Stroll at the moment. But then I'm sure all the Vettel fans will be saying, yeah, but it'll be different when he gets there. He'll get number one treatment. He's the 4 times world champion. So we'll see. I thought Nicholas Latifi did very well. Okay, George Russell had virtually no running from what I could see, one thing after another. And he did actually go off, I think, on his quickest lap. He's very apologetic about it. Good to hear. But Nicholas was always there or thereabouts and ended up, George Russell 17.2, Nicholas Latifi 17.3. So when all's said and done, he will be saying, I'm getting slightly nearer to everything. Bearing in mind that Giovinazzi did a 17.2, and Pierre Gasly, winner of the Italian Grand Prix 17-1. That's not too bad for either Williams driver, actually, considering all the things going on around them. So the team looking quite sharp, actually, already with the new management. About all you can say, I think, but looking quite sharp. Romain Grosjean, again, out-qualified Kevin Magnussen fairly comprehensively, 0.3. And again, you got to say, there's always things going on with Romain. There are lots of radio outbursts, always dramas in traffic, always this, always that. I mean, there must be a time when Haas start to think, let's just have some drivers that are just cool, calm, and do the job. Anyway, not a great day for them, as you can imagine. So let's just go finally through the grid. Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas 1-2, Max Verstappen, Alex Albon 3-4 for Red Bull Honda, Charles Leclerc, brilliant for Ferrari, P5. Then you've got the 2 racing points with Sergio with his grid penalty, Daniel Ricciardo, very good job in the Renault, Esteban Ocon, very good job as well. In doing a Daniel Ricciardo lap time and then trying to go a little bit quicker, he went off the road. So that shows there ain't much left in that car. Lando Norris was 11th. He had that shunt yesterday, possibly slowed him down. Not slowed him down in terms of his driving, but in terms of the development of where they are with the car and the risks he may or may not want to take with the car. So P11, nothing wrong with that. As he said at the time, it's all right, boys. Yeah, tomorrow is a race. Daniel could be at 12, good performance. Kimi, very good to be 13th. That, I think, it is the highest Alfa Romeo qualifying position this year. So well done, Kimi Räikkönen. Excellent. So good on him. Kimi Räikkönen, and then he out-qualified Sebastian Vettel. How about that? Kimi Räikkönen starts ahead of Sebastian Vettel on the grid, both powered by Ferrari engines, and Sebastian's 14th. Not a lot to write home about there. So, very good qualifying session overall. Wonderful to watch Lewis again at his very, very best on a circuit that rewards his sort of touch and feel. It's not only about how quick it is and how fast he's going through those flat out corners, which basically seem to be flat out for everyone, kind of, assuming you've got the car pointed in the right direction. One thing I've never asked an engineer, and I must do it, is whether or not on a flat out, say turn 8, turn 9, when the car's absolutely flat in 7th gear and they're running over those exit rumble strips, still flat, and the car's not moving, it's just going brrr like that, whether or not that hurts the lap time in any way. I'd be interested to know that. I don't even know whether they have the data to be able to explain that, but I'm wondering whether or not it makes any difference, whether you're on the tarmac or on that small rumble strip. That was one thing. And the other thing is how much I'm looking forward to seeing Mick Schumacher driving his dad's 2005 Formula One Ferrari around Mugello tomorrow. Don't miss that. It's going to be very emotional. Mick, fresh from his win in the Formula 2 feature race at Monza. Not sure he's qualified particularly well for the race today, but we'll have a look at that. But really, really going well. Great driver, a lot of character, great guy too. And to see him in his dad's car around Mugello, that is going to be incredibly emotional for him. So do not miss that. Do not miss the Grand Prix of Tuscany. Love saying that. See you tomorrow.